It's she, her.
Hear me out. I was bisexual my entire life, and then came out as a lesbian almost 4 years ago now.
Now, this is a common lesbian grooming tactic where historically they would often pretend that they were straight and that they just decided to be lesbian. But we all know that the science shows that lesbians have brains that are significantly different than heterosexual women, particularly with evidence of androgens. That is, they have more masculinized brains. And masculinization of the brain is correlated with attraction to women. Similarly, not being masculinized is correlated with being attracted to men. It's also important to point out that when people identify as bisexual, we tend to assume that they're equally attracted to men and women, where that's rarely the case. It's usually that they are, 75% to one side or 75% to the other side, or the other, right? And I can tell just by this woman how she moves. She's androgynous. Everything about her is masculine. That's she's way on the lesbians. But one of the mistakes lesbians make is that they think that if you just look feminine, that they don't really understand that there's actual behavior patterns that correspond, that are different in lesbian brains and straight women's brains, just like straight women and gay men, right? Where homosexual people tend to perform cognitively like the opposite sex, not their own sex. Now, this bio-lesbian was attempting an old school radical feminist trick where the idea was to try to relate, like they share experiences with other women by saying she's bisexual so she knows, when of course she doesn't, because her brain is not even arranged in the same way to even share the same experiences. But the trick is to try to make it look like you can just change your orientation. That's what that is. That's why it's a form of grooming. It's disingenuous.
In your spiritual spaces, in your practices, in who you're getting educated by, and who you're being taught by, in community, everything. When I prioritized women and also just centered myself and women.
Now, obviously, since lesbians have a biological predisposition to hating men, which tends to slowly show up in adolescence as resentment, often getting worse over time, which means it is related to sex because that's when they become sexually active. And it's also the time they're most likely to transition into men to try to get straight women. Okay? Often tricking women. Okay? Now, do you notice just the unattractive facial expressions? And this is something about the behavior is very similar to, the kinds of anti-male channels you see in the mixed spaces. It's the same kind of behavior. It's the same. That's because they're all like that. I'm sorry to say, they're all like that, right? At least like Golden Goddess, multiracial, Future is Golden. They're all like that. They're all like that. They're all like that. Okay, to any race they are a part of. If you're trying to form a group and a people and a race, there's nobody who will be more detrimental biologically. You can talk to them till they're green in the face. Internally, they're the opposite. Antithesis of a woman. And what's more important is to note these are not the counterpart to men. These are lesbians. These are not even our counterparts. These are counterparts to other lesbians or queer men. It's not up for us to protect them. They're not on our team. They're not on Team Human. They're on women. They see women as a race and they're on that race.
When all the decide what planet that they're going to after we this one, invite me because I will thrive.
So this is some lesbian ideology where they see men as non-human. Men are just these kind of mutated X chromosomes, and all the evil comes from that. Like we're just a mistake, and that they're supposed to make a kind of arc, and we're all going to die, and all the men are going to die, and women are going to escape, and it's all going to be lesbian, or that this planet is going to be destroyed, and they're going to go off to another planet and survive, and the men are going to be dead or evil. We're not even humans. It's pretty genocidal and it's pretty hateful, but it's a pattern of thinking that always regenerates from the lesbian mind into reality. And the more androgynous and lesbian the woman, that means even on the spectrum, the more those ideas are going to feel natural and intuitive to them. Whereas the more straight, they're going to feel unintuitive and counterintuitive. They're going to seem unnatural even, right?
I don't know if it would be a R&B-ish kind of singer, Kalani. I'm not exactly 100% sure how her name is said. It might be Kaylani. Anyways, so this is her take on decentering men. I wanted to be very well noted about her preferences that she stated in the beginning of the video. I think that we cannot not dismiss exactly what she said her interests are, who she's attracted to from the beginning of the video, right? So I just want to say that for all the women who are out there who talk about decentering men, all the women who are in relationships with men or who are attracted to men and actually want to be in relationships with them. They want to build with them. They want to have a family in the future. Not because you might have picked the wrong man in your younger years, or not because you dealt with some foolishness, does that mean that you need to grab onto and adapt all of these quote unquote decentering men rhetoric? All this stuff that is being fed to you of, oh, you don't need men, we don't have to be around men, we don't need them in our lives. You talked about in all aspects, you don't need male educators, you don't need male, any aspect, you don't need to be around men. For those of you who have that in mind, that you eventually do want to have a family, you are attracted to men, you do want to have relationships with men, that means that all of this stuff, this whole decentering men movement is not for you.
And those women participating in these kind of lesbian grooming gang, that's what they are. They're lesbian grooming gang channels. They're not redeemable. Why? Because they've already showed that they have a biology or neurology which is close enough to...
So bad that there's young women who are taking on all these thought processes and ideals and decentering men, and they don't even understand the magnitude of what it even means. They're adapting it as their own.
And it's up to us to warn straight women that this is a predatory movement.
I think that there are certain positions in society that are comfortable for a woman, and when you start pushing the men out of the other positions, then the women have to step into the ones that are uncomfortable for women.